Assalamu alaikum. You're watching News Somali host Khalid. Today is the 12th of October 2021. These are the stories that we will be talking about during the course of the show. We'll begin with the latest situation in Afghanistan as far as our Prime Minister Imran Khan's quotes are concerned also. And of course, we'll also talk about the latest that is coming out as far as the humanitarian crisis in Afghanistan is concerned. Our Prime Minister Imran Khan has reiterated his call for the world to engage with Afghanistan. He has warned that there were hardliners within the Taliban movement who, if they are pushed by the international community, could easily go back to the Taliban of 2000s. He was talking to the London-based online news outlet Middle East Eye. At the same time, there has been a meeting of the European Union ministers as well as far as this humanitarian crisis is concerned in Afghanistan. And Josep Borrell Fontelles, the High Representative of the EU for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy, also the Vice President of EU Commission, warns about the lingering humanitarian crisis in Afghanistan. This is going to be our leading segment. Then we're going to talk about the Kashmir situation. Of course, when I say Kashmir, it's Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. The world needs to focus on the Kashmir situation. We'll talk about the atrocities that are being committed in the Held Valley, the recent spree of killings. Of late, 5 have been killed in Shupanya. This is the latest tally of dead, and there's a whole spate of incidents that have happened in the last few days. Hundreds of people have also been put to jail, and this whole situation becomes even more tense as the days go by. This is going to be our leading second story. Then we will talk about Pakistan International Airlines that has achieved the International Air Transport Association, or IATA's new distribution capability, the NDC Level 4 certification. This certification is of the highest level that has been awarded to the Pakistan International Airlines, which says it is revamping itself of course in line with the digital world. And finally, we will talk about the Chief of the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Iran, Major General Mohammad Bagheri, who is reaching here today on a 3-day visit that is aimed at strengthening defense ties. Also, he is going to lead a high-ranking military delegation that is going to have talks with their counterparts. This is going to be our last story. Let's begin with our very first story, and that concerns the Afghan situation. Now, our Prime Minister Imran Khan has given interviews to many international outlets. The latest that he gave was to the Middle East Eye, which is a London-based online news outlet, wherein he talked about the crisis in Afghanistan and how the world cannot and should not sideline Afghanistan and needs to engage with Afghanistan, saying that if the hardliners within the Afghan Taliban were pushed away by the international community, they could easily go back to the Taliban of the 2000s. This is what he had to say.
The world must engage with Afghanistan. Isolating them, sanctioning them is going to, apart from anything else, apart from the chaos, it is going to be such a huge humanitarian crisis. So the neighbors are interested that they all form an inclusive government, so it's a stable government. There's shock in the US. They can't believe what has happened because they were never given an accurate picture. Also, we felt that we would be blamed for this. But because 300,000 troops surrendered without a fight, clearly we didn't tell them to surrender without a fight.
Now, Shahid Kiani Saab, former ambassador, joins us online. Kiani Saab, thank you very much to have joined us. The Prime Minister has given many statements regarding the situation in Afghanistan. Is the world listening, Kiani Saab?
I think the world should listen, because if you look around, if you look around the international media, what are they talking about? The buzzword is humanitarian assistance, humanitarian crisis to any issue which is humanitarian. You cannot have a more humanitarian issue, a crisis than Afghanistan, where their assets have been frozen, and there is not only the fear of people dying of starvation, but people dying of not having the right medicines. The hospitals have no medicine because they can't buy. Their assets are frozen. So when you look at when the West talks about an inclusive government, well, the inclusive government should not be priority number one. The priority number one is the people in Afghanistan should be allowed to live. This is what the Prime Minister has been saying, that they need acceptability. Recognition comes later on. But if you look around, what is United States doing in Doha? Just 9th and 10th, they had a long discussion with the Taliban representatives in Doha. So that is the right way. Nobody's. If you are having there, why are you blaming us? And the Prime Minister said very rightly that if the 300,000 troops, Afghan troops, which were trained, on which 2 or 3 trillion dollars were spent, they surrendered without a fight. Did we tell them? I mean, is as it happened in any part of history where one government who does not have boots and grounds in Afghanistan will tell them, okay, please surrender, and they will surrender. They did it themselves. A corrupt government, and whose president ran away before he couldn't face his own people. Do you think the 300,000 troops were absolute fools, that they would keep on fighting for the president has left the country? So please, they should be rational. And as I say,
All
in
right,
an
when
age
you
of
talk of
reason, let's be logical.
rationality, Kiani Sahib, when you talk of rationality, do you feel that the Joe Biden government understands the current situation in Afghanistan? I mean, I can understand there are certain differences that are political in nature between the US or the West and Afghanistan, but shouldn't they concentrate themselves currently on the humanitarian and economic crisis that is lingering on the country, and not only lift off the sanctions as far as the aid, all the IMF aid and the other World Bank that aid that has been currently scrapped or suspended needs to be put back into action, and the different countries, especially the West and the United Nations, should come forward at the earliest in order to alleviate the current state in Afghanistan. Do you feel that will happen, or do you feel it might happen but a bit too late in the day?
Well, if they play politics, as the Prime Minister said, that you can't play politics with the people. Meaning, if you have any, I can understand United States and NATO state countries, which are also some European Union members are also part of NATO. If they have any grounds against the Taliban, their past or even the present, okay, no problem. But what have the Afghan people done? They shouldn't be blamed for accepting the Taliban. The Taliban are here. If you look at this last century and this century, revolutions have happened in the country, like the Soviet Revolution, the Chinese, the Iranian Revolution. Do you think they ask the people what they want? But humanitarian aspect is totally should be taken out of who's ruling Afghanistan. People are in desperate need of humanitarian assistance. Politics should not be played with them. Meaning, how can you dip? And then if people die, do you think we should again be blamed? We are saying, we are on record of having saying, okay, please engage with them. Nobody is saying to recognize them. That would be a secondary issue. Here, people need to live. That is what it is. And history is being written. If, God forbid, even a single Afghan dies because of not having been given food or not being given the right medicine, who's going to be blamed? Meaning,
all right,
I can just tell you one more thing. Why there is so much anger within the Biden administration? Because what they were thinking or what briefing they were given was, even few days before the 15th of August, President Biden and the whole administration was saying that these people will fight and they will sustain. They did not. And we have been telling them for the last many decades, for God's sake, the last 2 decades, we were saying that there is no military solution to this. Talk to them. They did talk to them, but it was too late. And
all right, now let's talk
no
about aid. Now, we know that the United States in the past has released some kind of an amount for the aid to Afghanistan, and of late there have been talks with the Taliban in Doha between the United States and the Afghan Taliban as well. What the Afghan Taliban say is that it has focused on security and terrorism concerns, safe passage for US citizens, but also about humanitarian aid that will go from the US side. Do you feel that other countries also need to follow suit if that is actually happening from the US side?
If you look around the social media and the newspapers in Pakistan, even now when I'm talking to you, there are countries like Spain and Italy and other smaller European countries who are still taking their people out. They are coming by road from from Afghanistan into Pakistan, and they are being
Yes, of course.
they are being shipped out. They're taking them, and we are
There are
helping
also
them. We are
certain Afghan nationals that are being shipped out through Pakistan.
Absolutely, they are going. So this is one aspect. But at the same time, when you are taking out maybe 200, 300, each country is taking out Afghans, the most important thing is for those Afghans who do not want to leave the country. Now, this is something very important. There are in millions. Not everybody would like to leave Afghanistan and go to United States or the European countries. That will continue. Immigration is an issue throughout the world. It keeps on going. Even after maybe few years, some Afghans would like to leave. Well, they will go through a legal means. They will have to get their visas and for their immigration status being confirmed, and they will leave. But at this time, when we're talking about, they need to be engaged and they need to be asked. Believe what the Taliban people should be asked, whatever the functionaries, the leaders, what assistance do you require now? That is the priority number one. And they should be given assistance. All the NGOs or all the humanitarian, like United Nations, they should be given security, and the Taliban should give them. And they should find out the whole of Afghanistan to find out what assistance they can, because there are people in the rural areas where the roads, the main road do not lead to them. And there I can tell you, the literacy level being very, very low, people as yet do not understand as to what has happened. Meaning, you can't play politics. Let those people live. That is first thing.
That is so true. Let's come to certain developments, Shahid Kiani Saab. As far as the world is concerned, I talked about the meeting between the US and the Afghan Taliban that was held in Doha, as a result of which there's going to be some humanitarian aid from the US to Afghanistan. Also, Joseph Borrell Fontelles, the High Representative of the EU for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy, who's also the Vice President of the European Union Commission, has convened a meeting of the Foreign Affairs Council Development Ministers to address the situation in Afghanistan. And therein, he said, and I quote, the humanitarian and socio-economic situation in Afghanistan is on the verge of collapse. At least 1 million children are at risk of dying this winter of cold and hunger unless they get the appropriate assistance. We cannot wait and see. We need to act, and act quickly. Is that going to happen?
I am absolutely sure it is going to happen. I will tell you why. In any general elections in these countries, in the West European countries, the most important aspect, apart from the climate change and pollution and everything, is humanitarian assistance. These European countries, European Union members, understand and they know that they reflect the aspirations of the people of those countries. Humanitarian aspect is number one. As in Italian, they say numero uno. They cannot, and for that, they will not listen to any country. I can assure you one thing, let me be honest. United States will be behind the European Union support, quietly telling them that, okay, you can give them assistance. No European Union country can afford that even one Afghan child dies during this period.
All right. Now, Shahid Kiani Sahab, also there is going to be an emergency G20 summit that is going to concentrate on the Afghan issue that is being hosted by Italy. It's a virtual summit, and it is starting today. And in fact, it must be going on as we speak. And they are going to talk about the Afghan crisis and how to handle it. Now that the European Union is also on the same page as the G20, more or less, what should be the next step by the world body? Do you feel that at any time in the future they will recognize Afghanistan's government, or do you feel that the Afghan Taliban need to make certain amends as far as their constitution or their governance is concerned, so as to make the foreign countries, especially the West, kind of be more towards, tilting towards them and accepting their government?
The Taliban at this time, I tell you, whatever small steps they have taken, they are in the right direction. Like what? Like if you look at what Kabul, the foreign minister, or the other, the Minister of Information, or those in Doha, they're at least talking to the representative, whoever comes and talks to them. That is something, a very positive development. The other thing, which the meaning it doesn't take much money. If the education institutions are open, let the girls study, because this is an issue which the Taliban should consider. In the West, it is a very important issue. The visibility, the girls going to the school the way they were going in the past. Let the girls study. They have as much right to education as anybody. Even the Quran, if you look at the Holy Quran, look at the Sunnah, and look at our Islamic period, girls were allowed to study. That is some issue they will understand. And but at the same time, this should not be linked to assisting the Afghan. But Afghanistan quietly should be told, when the European Union people stand there, that when they talk to them, have a dialogue with them, and tell them that, listen, this is also part of humanitarian aspect of girls being allowed, because if you look at it, if you talk to the parents in the towns and villages, they would like their children to study. What will they do at home? Meaning, why should they be deprived? What what meaning they cannot be blamed for the Taliban having succeeded in routing the Ghani government. That's a different issue. But I can tell you, if humanitarian assistance is given and a dialogue also, as they say, in tandem goes with them, I'm sure the Taliban will understand the importance of assistance, and assistance to each and every Tom, Dick, and Harry in Afghanistan, and not only to the male population. Female are as part and parcel of Afghan society that others are.
Now, speaking of the Afghan policy and the Afghan governance as we speak currently, there seems to be two different frames of mind as far as the world bodies are concerned. There is one huge chunk of the West that says that they need to concentrate on the girls' education and the human rights issue and some other factors, whereas there are countries such as China or Russia that are not that interfering as far as the current status of the Afghan governance is concerned. Is this going to create more polarity amongst the world bodies and amongst the great powers that be, and that polarity is going to concentrate itself on Afghanistan?
I can assure you, Russia and China, who have been in the forefront, I can tell you, even when the United States had occupied Afghanistan to talk to the Taliban and the Ghani government, they do not, as a policy, Russia and China, who are very close neighbors of Afghanistan, do not publicly make statements, because they consider this as interference in the affairs of a state. But I'm sure they are in touch with the Taliban and telling them quietly because for them also, girls' education is priority. These Russia and China, the literacy rate is about 99%. For them, it's important. But as a policy, they do not interfere in the affairs. So quietly, they must be talking to them and telling them that, listen, please allow the other part of the population to also have education. But again, let me say to you, sir, at this time, I think living is more important than the education. People, the humanitarian assistance, health and education, food, and drinking water, maybe so many other things, the Afghan population are waiting to be assisted, and that should be separated from the having inclusive government or women's education. I think this is priority number 2. They can go in, but if you see, if a human being lives, would he then be able to study? So the priority should not be lopsided. And our Prime Minister is interviewed with Middle East Eye, as you quoted, as correctly stated, that they need to be engaged. Why not? Why not talk to them? What is wrong with them? If Americans are, meaning, I do not understand the double standard. You are still talking to them in Doha. And then the State Department also released the statement there saying that it was a good professional talk. So let the talk continue.
But Kiani Saab, I'd like to understand your point of view as far as the current situation, of course, in Afghanistan is concerned, because from the Afghan side, there is a statement from the Foreign Minister, Mr. Muttaqi, who says that Afghanistan wants good relations with the entire world. Then on the other hand, you remember that they had talked about inclusiveness in their government, which hasn't really come up to the mark as needs to be done. Do you feel that this statement that has emanated from the current Afghan Foreign Minister is kind of hinting that there might be changes that that would side with the mindset of the West in the coming days?
I'm one thing, Mr. Butt, I'm quite surprised. If you look at about there was a video on the social media about 2 weeks back or 3 weeks back, in which the Ministry for Women Empowerment or some sort of female education, the official the bureaucracy which consisted of many women ladies were coming to the ministry and they were stopping them from coming. This is something foolish, absolutely. Meaning this is a small step which you should have allowed the women to go and work. Simple. And the message would have gone to the West, no, they are. But they didn't even do that. Meaning they should allow, meaning in no question, meaning inclusive government. What would go wrong if they allow just make some two ladies as ministers of state in their cabinet and they will be covering their faces and sitting there? Why can't they do that? I'm quite surprised. Meaning these are things which naturally speaking undermine their resolve. They show that they're resolved not to allow women to be part and parcel of the government. Why can't they do it?
Right.
These are things, small
finally, Kiani Saab, Pakistan, will gain a lot if there is a stable Afghanistan, but also might have repercussions if the situation in Afghanistan becomes more unstable. There are a lot of articles that have been written on how Pakistan will be affected by whatever state Afghanistan gets into in the coming weeks and months. At the same time, our Premier and our other leaders have also said that Pakistan does not need to be made this scapegoat as far as the current situation in Afghanistan is concerned. There are two different angles to this question that I'd like your point of view on.
If you look at the series of interviews that our Prime Minister has given since the coming on power of the Taliban, and if you see the main things which with the main stream is as saying that Pakistan has suffered the most in the last 4 decades. 4 decades, not, and with our with our very scarce resources, we still have been able to look after the refugees which are living in Pakistan. We can't afford more refugees. For us, I'm just saying very, very frankly, we recognize them earlier, we recognize them now. I tell you why. For us, for the countries who are not part and parcel of this region, it's a luxury for them. For us, no. De facto, de jure recognition we'll have to give because we have to secure our 2,400 miles of border. I mean, what politics can anybody play with that? For us, it's very important that peace prevails in Afghanistan first, and we are able to secure the security of our own people and our soldiers who are on the
All right.
border.
Thank you very much, Shahid Kiani Saab, for your input on this topic. We'll be back after a short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back. You're watching Newsroom, and now we're going to talk about, in our second story of the day, the recent spree of killings in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. The situation has become extremely tense in the region. Scores of arrests, in fact hundreds of arrests, have been made by the Indian forces and the Indian government in the Hild Valley, and the people are still under a besieged state and of course under this whole atrocious regime and the regressive regime of the Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. More in the following report.
The Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir has been proven as India's Achilles heel, as the indigenous resistance movement against Indian occupation has garnered unprecedented momentum. In recent spree of violence, at least 5 Indian soldiers were killed while 2 Kashmiris freedom fighters embraced martyrdom in several rounds of gun battles in belligerent valley. The frenzied Indian state apparatus resorted to bench of arbitrary detentions and extrajudicial killings as its security forces are facing growing public resentment. In a botched attempt to further brutalize the Muslim-majority valley, Indian government forces arrested over 1,400 Kashmiris on fabricated charges in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. This unrestrained bout of arrests are vividly illustrative of sheer impunity with which Hindutva BJP regime is committing crimes against humanity in the besieged valley. Foreign Office spokesperson Asim Iftikhar strongly condemned Indian atrocities while emphasizing that these arbitrary arrests and detentions by Indian occupation forces are prime example of India's state terrorism and trampling of fundamental human rights in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. This recent saga of Indian brutalization against unarmed innocent Kashmiris lends further credence to the comprehensive dossier unveiled by Pakistan last month, which presented incriminating evidence of Indian war crimes and gross human rights violation in the occupied valley. As Neo faces Indian regime persists in violating United Nations resolutions and international law, and despite telltale signs of ongoing genocide, the deafening silence of international community is baffling.
Now, of course, there's a definite genocide that is going on in the Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, and of course, the number of arrests that have also been made in the Indian held valley point towards the continuous brutalities of the regime in the held valley. The people in the valley are being forced to not only succumb to the pressure of the current regime and the forces in the Indian held valley, but also no right is being given to them, despite the different resolutions that have been put forward in the United Nations and the other organizations. Nothing has really come forward as far as some kind of a resolution of this issue, and that is what leads to a lot of frustration within the community there. Now, we've been joined by our guest, Brigadier Amjad Ali, who's a senior analyst, but before that, let's hear what had to be said.
The Geneva Convention, it states clearly that you cannot change the demography of an occupied country. We are not now talking about it as a territorial issue. We are simply talking that allow the Kashmiris, and we in Pakistan have given them the other option. They don't have to come either to Pakistan or India, just their right, democratic right, if they want to be an independent country.
That was what the Prime Minister Imran Khan said to the Middle East Eye. That was an online agency about Kashmir, that they need to be given their due right. Brigadier Amjad Ali, senior analyst, joins us now. Thank you very much, Brigadier Saab, to have joined us. You've heard what the Prime Minister said. You have also heard the different measures that our government has taken on the different international fora as to highlight the Kashmir cause. The resolutions are there in the United Nations. Still nothing is happening, and of course there's a huge tension that is mounting inside the held valley, and that is resulting in this killing spree in the last few days. What is your comment on this latest state of affairs in the Indian held valley?
Thank you very much, Omar. May I say that this is a totally disappointment as far as the
issue as far as Brigadier Amjad Ali is concerned. As soon as we get hold of Brigadier Saab, we'll come back to him and talk about what is happening in the Indian held valley. As our Prime Minister also said, the people in the Indian held valley need to be given their due right to self-determination, to decide what they want to do with their lives, with the region. And the way the current Indian government is moving forward, not only to change the demography of the Indian held valley, but also putting and subjugating the people of Indian held Jammu and Kashmir under undue pressure through these different tactics, leads to a very, very uncertain situation in the held valley. Brigadier Amjad Ali Saab, you were saying.
Yes, may I say that this is a total disappointment as far as the United Nations is concerned. So many resolutions they have been put up to United Nations to resolve these issues, but sadly the international community's response is not up to the mark, or may I say that they are maybe not concerned about the humanitarian issues which are there in Kashmir. Even they have synchronized it to an extent that their Supreme Court, their Commission on Human Rights, they also have started saying that perhaps India has done a right thing by abrogating 370 and 35A. That is something which is disheartening, and as far as the Prime Minister Imran Khan is concerned, he is trying his best, and at every forum he has expressed his views, and in the latest interviews you have shown, Prime Minister very clearly said that no country is allowed to change the demography of its territory as far as the Geneva Convention is concerned. So I don't think so that the indigenous struggle which the Kashmiris are doing now India would be able to achieve any result out of it.
All right. Now, Brigadier Saab, there's another uprising that we have recently seen in the Indian Hell Valley. And of course, it stems from the whole uncertain situation, from the tensions that are present inside the region, and from the people of Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir that are continuously being denied their right to live, their right to self-determination, and their right to decide what they want to do. Now, in this whole scenario, what kind of an outlook do you see coming out of the Hell Valley in the coming days and weeks? Because the situation seems quite uncertain.
Yes, situation is uncertain, but this is to no surprise for anybody in the world. In 1995, you remember when Bill Clinton visited that area, India especially, and there were a lot of incidents taking place here and there, and killings were taking place. And lately, you have seen that Secretary of State, Deputy Secretary of State, when visited India, these things started happening, and killing nobody but the minorities, the Sikhs, the Hindus, the Pandits. And I am sure that this is not being done by any terrorist organization or terrorist group. It is being done by their agencies to tell the world that how brutal these terrorists are, and whatever is happening in the valley, it is not a freedom struggle. This is rather an insurgency and the act of terrorism which is being carried out by certain splinter groups, which is not the fact.
All right. Speaking of these splinter groups, let's talk a little bit about the resistance front that we've hearing a lot of in the different articles as being that splinter group, as you've talked about, that is behind the recent spate of violence against the Indian forces. Now, there are a lot of question marks as far as the resistance front is concerned also, because the statements that emanate from this splinter group or this group are mostly in English and are mostly on the WhatsApp groups. What do you have to say on that?
This is all being done by themselves. Their agencies are operating a lot of, before this there was, I used to call it a constitutional warfare. Now they have started doing it all on the social media. They have started doing it physically on ground. They have started killing the innocent Kashmiris, just portraying that these are the terrorists. Whereas their struggle will continue, but not in a way that the Indians are portraying. Rather, Indians are killing unnecessarily their people. Indians themselves are killing their own troops, and they have done it in Pulwama. You must have seen that. To them, this is no offense, because they are fighting for a piece of land which is not theirs.
Will that realization come within the Indian public, the sane Indian public that is, or the international bodies, that as to what India is actually perpetrating in the Hell Valley? I'm talking of these recent incidents.
Yes, India is trying to give a feeling to the world that see how difficult time we are going through, whereas the majority of the people, they want to be with the India, and majority of the people have accepted their alienation with the India. Majority of the people have not objected to 370 or 35A, and they want to live peacefully. But these terrorist groups which are being sent from the different countries, they say so, they are trying to do these acts so as to destroy the peace of the valley.
Human Rights Watch last Saturday, Brigadier Saab, took out a statement that was, of course, concerning the human rights abuses in the Hell Valley, and that they need to stop. There have been so many reports, whether it be by the United Nations Human Rights Commission, whether it be by Amnesty International and others as well. But the reports remain reports, no action, no tangible follow-up is taken as far as all of these reports are concerned. Do these reports, do all of these statements fall on deaf ears as far as the world body is concerned?
Yes, this is the unfortunate, part of the story. This is the sad part of the story. So many reports on the human rights violations, so many reports of the brutalities of the occupied forces in occupied illegally Indian occupied Kashmir. But these are just falling on the deaf ears of the world community. This is something unfortunate.
All right. Now, in the latest spate of arrests, 650 people have been detained. Before that, around 1,400 people have been detained. And of course, this is also what our Premier has talked about, these 1,400 people. Why do you continue I mean, these are your people as well for the moment, at least till you give them the right to self-determination, and then they'll decide what they want to do with their territory. But until then, they are under your control more or less. But you need to be, as you say, a proper democracy. Are those democratic principles completely being nullified by India as we speak?
This Modi regime and RSS mindset, which is surely the fascist mindset, has destroyed the very meanings of democracy. They have failed to realize that at this time they are their people, and they have just one demand. They need self-determination. They need a vote to just decide their future. But this is unfortunate. This is what is the brutality. This is what RSS is doing. It is not the matter of Kashmir or any other state of the India. It is all against the Muslims and the minorities, and that is their mindset.
All right. Thank you very much, Brigadier Amjad Ali Saab, senior analyst, talking to us about the latest situation in Indian held valley, and of course the whole insinuation that there are certain elements behind the killings of the Indian people and the Indian forces, when as per our analysts it is the Indian government itself that is perpetrating this and that is behind all of these incidents. Let's go to our last two stories very quickly. The first is our national airlines, Pakistan International Airlines, that has been awarded the highest level certification, which is the IATA's, or International Air Transport Association's, new distribution capability level 4 certification. Now, PIA on Monday has said that the carrier has embarked upon a digital transformation program which will focus on modernizing its business practices, resource competence, technology upgrade and partner collaborations in line with the new industry standards and practices. Our national airline is revamping itself and upgrading itself to the latest technologies, and of course that is why the new certification has been given by IATA as well to our national carrier, that is Pakistan International Airlines. So congratulations to them. And now let's go to our very last story, ladies and gentlemen, and that concerns the Indian Armed Forces Chief, who is to arrive in Islamabad today. The Chief of the General Staff for the Armed Forces of Iran, Major General Mohammad Bagheri, is reaching here today on a 3-day official visit. Of course, he'll be leading a high-level delegation, and there are going to be important talks between the two sides, that is between the Iranian and the Pakistani side. He is also going to visit Karachi during his trip to Pakistan. The Iranian newswire IRNA has said that the visit expresses the resolve of the Iranian and the Pakistani military officials to further enhance bilateral cooperation, develop security at the common borders. This has been something that has been reiterated by the Pakistani side as well. Contribute to regional stability, forge a common vision for peace and stability in Afghanistan, consult on issues of the Islamic world, and fight terrorism. Very important topics that need to be discussed by these countries, and of course the visit of the Iranian official will go forward a long way in further cementing the ties between the two countries. With that, we come to an end of today's newsroom. We'll see you inshallah tomorrow with new segment stories that matter to US and to Pakistan. Till then, get yourselves vaccinated, follow the SOPs, and also take care because dengue is in the air. Allah Hafiz.